Start your engines for a Gaming Legends YouTube production. Fasten your seatbelts for another Dr. Rank creation! Can you beat Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled without jumping? The rules of this challenge are simple. We must complete the adventure mode without pressing either of the hop/power slide buttons. We'll also be playing on classic difficulty, which emulates the conditions of the original CTR. The run ends when we defeat Nitros Oxide. Plus, as a bonus challenge, we'll be aiming for the highest possible completion percentage. Before even starting, we have to choose our character, whom we can't change once we start. Our main weakness in a Jumpless run is going to be speed, so we should pick a speed character to compensate. I personally went with Dingo purely for the Aussie representation. The first few tracks are fairly easy since you're not even expected to know how to jump yet. However, it will be a much closer race than usual. One of the most important mechanics in CTR is drift boosting, but since drifting uses the jump buttons, we can't do that. The only ways to get a boost are to either drive over a boost pad or get the turbo item from an item box. We can also increase our maximum speed by collecting Wumpa Fruit, with the maximum of 10 also enhancing our items. Item boxes will play a much larger factor into the run too, with more frequent opportunities to slow down first place with a missile. You'll want to play more defensively while in the lead, saving bombs and beakers to block incoming missiles, but the AI will never use the entropy clock or warp orb against you. Rouge Tube shows us that the terrain has an impact on our speed, as we move faster downhill than uphill. In Mystery Caves, we discover that driving over the turtles puts us into an automatic jumping state. If we stay airborne for at least 0.7 seconds, we'll get a jump boost, which gets bigger with more airtime. By chaining these together, we can easily outrun the competition. Sewer Speedway has a shortcut that is completely inaccessible. We just don't have enough speed to reach it. The main path is still traversable though, and with a lucky missile hit, we can get our 4th trophy, which unlocks the first boss race. Ripperoo has an infinite supply of TNT crates, which are much more dangerous than usual. If we hit a TNT, the only way to shake it off is by jumping repeatedly, and we can't use any items while it's still there. I was falling behind going into lap 2, but I managed to drop a juiced up beaker between the TNTs. Bosses always follow a set path, meaning Roo was guaranteed to hit that beaker on the next lap. Since red beakers reduce the victim's speed and bosses can't attack forwards, I was able to breeze ahead and earn the first key. Now we could move on to the Lost Ruins via Gemstone Valley, but remember, this is a max percent run. We have to go back into every track for the relics and CTR tokens. To get the latter, we need to collect all 3 letters and still win the race. The C on Crash Cove is off the edge of a ramp, but we can still reach it with the speed from an Uka Uka mask or by driving from a higher point on the ship. The T, however, is on a bridge that you can only access by landing on this outcropping. Even a juiced up mask can't make it. But a juiced up turbo puts the speedo at max and just barely makes it up. Turbos are a rare item at the front, so I recommend sandbagging, dropping down to a lower position to get turbos more frequently. You're better off getting the turbo at the start of the race so you have more time to catch up, and so you can throw out more clocks and warp orbs to slow down the others. The C on Rouge Tubes is more difficult to reach, but a properly timed juiced up turbo can just barely reach it. The C on Mystery Caves has a boost pad right in front of it, and the R is right after a turtle. Make sure you drive over it while it's standing up for more jump height. None of Sewer Speedway's letters are on the shortcut, but the C and T still weren't easy. I grabbed both with a mask in combination with a boost pad, with the C requiring I do so from the side of the half-pipe. The relic races were pretty easy, but due to a lack of item boxes, I could never get all the time crates for the perfect bonus. I was able to get the gold relic from Crash Cove, but the others couldn't do any better than Sapphire. Also, Mystery Caves took me 3 tries because I kept missing this damn 3 crate. The only item from Sanity Beach I couldn't get was the purple token in Skull Rock. Even with guaranteed turbos in every single item box, there was one crystal that was still out of reach. Since the gem cups require all 4 tokens of the same color to access, we're now locked out of the purple gem cup, as well as Turbo Track, which requires all 5 gems. Moving on to the Lost Ruins, Coco Park was an absolute pushover. The track is perfectly flat, and all the CTR letters are at ground level. Even the Relic race gave me a gold here. Tiger Temple has some corrugated terrain that slows us down heavily, but it also has a highly accessible shortcut that the AI never takes. But just because the trophy race was easy doesn't mean the other challenges are. The C can only be reached with a turbo, and the R is only accessible from the aforementioned shortcut. This requires us to not only get lucky with a turbo for the C, but also grab an offensive item for the shortcut and make sure we don't miss it, and all while still winning. It took me 5 tries, but eventually I got a lucky run that wrapped up the ladders by lap 2 and managed to hold the lead for all of lap 3. Unfortunately, Tiger Temple has our first accessible yet impossible relic race. Nearly 40% of the time crates are airborne, meaning we can't freeze the clock long enough to even achieve a Sapphire relic. Papu's Pyramid has multiple shortcuts that require jumping, and that I couldn't reach with even a turbo. Since the C and the T are on those shortcuts, this CTR token and thus the red gem cup are impossible. There's also a few sharp turns that are difficult to make with a speed character, but a quick press of the brake button does the trick. The relic race is possible at least, albeit with great difficulty. We do have to repeat this track for the boss race with Papu Papu, who is a speed character just like us, but the same strategies as Reparoo still apply here. In between, we had to visit Dingo Canyon, which is a cakewalk. The CTR challenge gives us a boost pad right before the R, and the relic race only has 2 unreachable crates. Rampage Ruins is another impossible battle arena. We can get a few of the airborne crystals with enough speed up the ramps, but 2 of them are just out of reach. I even tried getting blown up by a TNT underneath them, but alas, the change in altitude was negligible. Even in the original CTR, this crystal is just barely out of reach for a turbo. Not that it matters, because a colorblind programmer at Beanox made this a bombs-only arena in the remake. Glacier Park is where the difficulty really ramps up. By this point, Uka Uka has given you every possible tutorial, so the game expects that you know how to drift boost. Consequently, Blizzard Bluff sees the AI start to drift boost themselves a bit more. The fact that the shortcuts rely on jumping with high speed certainly doesn't help. On the first attempt, Engine managed to beat me by 0.2 seconds! And then in round 2, he beat me by 1.5. Then, just as I had Engine under control, Pura outran my Uka mask and won by 0.24. And then he was 4 seconds ahead after that! Round 5, I got a turbo right at the end, and he still beat me by 0.1! Seriously, I thought Pura was a slow character! And then he won while taking damage from a missile, because apparently you don't lose momentum on the ice! But eventually, I managed to get a run with a strong lead in lap 3, and held it all the way to the end. And then I had to repeat the feat for the CTR challenge, using a mask to grab the T. The relic race took me 3 tries too. The trick is to get the time crates on the ice in the right order, so the timer isn't frozen when you've already finished. On Dragon Mines, I got lucky with 3 Uka Uka masks in a row, which let me take the shortcut on the minecart tracks twice without losing any speed. I got similar luck with the CTR challenge, as only the T was airborne, and even then it was grabbable just by dropping down from the top of the loop. I also got all but 1 time crate in the relic race, which was just barely enough to take home the gold. Polar Pass is a long track with no accessible shortcuts, but there's plenty of item boxes we can use. The final ramp gives us Blue Fire, which only lasts a brief moment since we can't extend it with drift boosts. Despite this, I was able to hold a very strong lead on this one. The T and the R both have boost pads in front of them, and we can just barely grab them without any items. Then we get to Tiny Arena. The track is bumpy as hell, which the AI takes full advantage of with jump boosts. There are several mud pits that eat our momentum, and worst of all, almost every item box is airborne. We can't even get any items until halfway through the lap, which takes almost a full minute from the start line. Needless to say, Tiny won twice in a row. But on the third attempt, by some miracle, Tiny made several mistakes at the start of lap 3, leaving only Pura and I in the lead. I got an Uka mask as my second last item, but then got unlucky with a beaker. But with the last 2 boost pads, I managed to beat Pura to the finish line by 0.05 seconds.
And the winner is number 3 in a quantum finish.
No fair! You changed the outcome by measuring it.
After absolutely annihilating Komodo Joe, we have to go right back into Tiny Arena for the other items. The Relic race was simple enough, but the CTR challenge was a nightmare. Both the T and the R require a turbo to reach, and there are no grounded item boxes in between, so you basically have to grab them on separate laps. I spent multiple hours trying to get this token, and even on the rare occasion where I could get all 3 letters, I could never catch up to the AI. Just look how far ahead Polar is on this attempt. Insane! So yeah, no yellow gem for you. On the bright side, we can finally get a purple token for once. Rocky Road has 2 airborne crystals that can just barely be grabbed with a running start alone. We've also got enough relics by now to play Slide Coliseum, which only contains a relic race. All but 2 time crates are accessible, with those 2 being on top of the tires. I actually managed to beat the Platinum Relic time by 0.3 seconds. The final hub, Citadel City, doesn't have anything nearly as hard as Tiny Arena. On Engine Labs, several AI racers managed to fall off at the dumbest possible areas. Cortex Castle has several 90-degree turns which we can't take very quickly. I recommend taking the left route in the garden as it reduces time spent slowing down for corners. Tiny raced too far ahead a couple times, but eventually I got a good run with an early mask and banked the trophy. Also, on one attempt, Coco managed to get herself stuck on the wall for a full lap. She always was the master of sitting and doing nothing. I was worried about the big jumps on Hot Air Skyway and Oxide Station, but the preceding boost pads all give blue fire, which is enough to clear the gaps with speed alone. Though it did still take me 3 tries to beat Polar on the Skyway, and as if that wasn't enough, I then had to face Pinstripe. Unlike other bosses, Pinstripe uses actual projectiles instead of just hazards. If he pulls ahead, he can maintain that lead very easily. But those bombs are useless for defending himself from warp orbs, and if you get a triple missile, you can fire multiple at once for a guaranteed hit. On lap 2, I got an entropy clock, which I used while juiced up for maximum duration. Clocks not only slow your opponents down, they also forbid them from using items. By the time I overtook him, I had a triple bomb, letting me give Pinstripe a taste of his own medicine. He never throws his bombs forward, so once you get far enough ahead, you're golden. While all the relics from Citadel City are possible, albeit with only Sapphire, the only token I could get from here was Nitro Court, which is completely flat. The other tracks all have at least 1 letter that's out of reach, closing down all remaining gem cups. But with all possible items collected, we can challenge the final boss, Nitros Oxide. He may have gotten a head start due to his blatant disregard for racing etiquette, but the first item I got was a triple missile. I knocked him out with 1, then saved the other 2 in case he overtook me. He did just that in lap 2, but both my missiles somehow missed him. Luckily, I got a full refill almost immediately. Keep hitting every boost pad and you should be able to beat Oxide by 3 seconds. With Dingo starting his firefighting career, the Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled Jumpless run is officially conquered! And with 16 relics and 12 CTR tokens, we've achieved 82% completion. If you're interested in watching the run, you can watch it without commentary on my archive channel. And because I know someone's going to ask in the comments, I do plan to do a Crash Nitro Kart video as well, but that one will not be jumpless. But you know, there is a certain other vehicle-based Naughty Dog game we can do a jumpless run in.